All right, so buckle up because this one you set us into some pretty deep waters with this
Oh,
one.
yeah.
We're diving into competing LLM agents in a non-cooperative game of opinion polarization. Now, I know that title might sound like a mouthful,
It's a doozy.
but trust me, it gets really interesting.
It
It
does.
really
Yeah,
does.
this is a fascinating one.
So,
What we're really looking at here is a simulation, but it's designed to help us understand something we all experience, in the real world, how opinions spread and sometimes how misinformation can take hold.
yeah, it's like they've created a digital battleground
Uh-huh.
of ideas. The paper sets up a scenario where two large language models, those AI systems that can generate text,
Right.
are pitted against each other. One is spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
Think of it like the rumor mill,
Okay.
while the other is trying to debunk it, fighting for truth and accuracy.
Yeah, and it's not just a two-sided battle.
Right.
The researchers have also included a simulated population representing everyday people like you and me. These people are exposed to information from both of the AI agents, and their opinions shift based on what they encounter.
Okay, so let's give these AI agents some names just to make it easier to follow.
Okay.
We'll call the one spreading misinformation the red agent,
Oh, right.
and the one fighting for truth the blue agent.
I like it.
How's that?
And the people in the simulation are referred to as green nodes, kind of caught in the middle of this tug of war for their opinions.
Now, here's where it gets really fascinating.
Okay.
The researchers have incorporated something called the Bounded Confidence Model,
Okay.
or BCM, into this simulation. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to change someone's mind if their opinion is already somewhat close to yours?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's like if you're talking about, I don't know, like a band that you both like, or if you
Exact
already
shot.
have common ground, it's so much easier to,
Yeah, the BCM reflects that tendency. It basically says that people are more likely to be influenced by opinions that are already within their comfort zone of beliefs.
yeah,
It's like trying to convince someone who loves dogs to get a cat.
right.
It's more likely to happen than convincing someone who's terrified of all animals.
Makes sense. So the further apart two opinions are, the harder it is to bridge that gap.
Totally.
And this plays a big role in how the red and blue agents interact with the green nodes in the simulation.
And to make things even more realistic, the researchers have given the blue agents a limited set of resources.
Okay.
This reflects the real-world constraints that fact-checkers and debunking organizations often face. Time, money, attention. It's all finite.
Yeah, it's like they're constantly battling an uphill battle trying to keep up with the flood of misinformation. So what happens when you set these AI agents loose in this simulated environment?
Well, the researchers ran a series of simulations, tweaking different variables to see how it affected the spread of misinformation. One of the key things they looked at was confirmation bias,
Oh, yeah.
that tendency we all have to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs.
We've all been there scrolling through our social media feeds, nodding along to the posts that align with our worldview, and maybe getting a little heated over the ones that don't.
Exactly. And the researchers found that the stronger the confirmation bias in the simulated population, meaning the more resistant those green nodes were to changing their minds,
Yeah.
the easier it was for the population to become polarized.
Polarized meaning divided, like ending up with two distinct camps, one believing the misinformation and the other believing the truth.
Precisely. And the results were pretty striking. With high levels of confirmation bias, nearly 90% of the green nodes ended up strongly aligned with either the red or blue agent. It's like those echo chambers we see online where people are only exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs.
So even in this simplified digital world, we see how confirmation bias can lead to a divided population with people digging in their heels and becoming less open to different perspectives.
It's a powerful reminder of how important it is to be aware of our own biases and to actively seek out diverse viewpoints, even and perhaps especially when they challenge our own beliefs.
Challenge accepted. Now, the researchers didn't just simulate the spread of misinformation. They also tested different strategies for the blue agent to try and combat it.
Right.
One approach they explored was having the blue agent go all in early on, using up a lot of resources in a big initial push to spread the truth.
It's like launching a massive public awareness campaign trying to reach as many green nodes as possible right from the start.
But wouldn't that quickly deplete their resources, leaving them with less to work with in the long run?
That's exactly what happened in the simulation. While this shock and awe approach did help the blue agent gain more followers initially, it also led to a faster depletion of their resources, making it harder to sustain their influence over time.
So it's a trade-off, short-term gains versus long-term sustainability.
Exactly, and it highlights the importance of strategic thinking when it comes to combating misinformation. It's not just about winning the immediate battle, it's about finding ways to have a lasting impact.
So what other strategies did they explore? Did they find anything that worked better in the long run?
Well, they didn't necessarily find a magic bullet solution, but the research does offer some valuable insights.
Okay.
They found that consistently engaging with the green nodes, even with limited resources, was more effective than short boosts of intense activity. It's like the old saying, slow and steady wins the race.
So it's about building trust and credibility over time rather than trying to bombard people with information all at once.
Precisely. And this ties back to the bounded confidence model we talked about earlier.
Right.
Remember, people are more likely to be influenced by opinions that are already somewhat close to their own.
So instead of trying to force a sudden change in opinion, it's more effective to nudge people gradually towards a more accurate understanding.
Exactly. It's about finding those points of common ground and building from there. It's about engaging in respectful dialogue, even with those who hold different views.
Okay, so we've talked about confirmation bias polarization and the challenges of limited resources. Were there any other interesting findings that came out of this research?
There were. Remember how the researchers used those large language models, or LLMs, to represent the red and blue agents?
Yeah.
Well, they actually experimented with several different LLMs, including ones called Mixtral, Gemma, and Gemini.
Wow.
And they used another LLM as a judge to evaluate how effective each agent was at crafting their messages.
So it's like they had an AI referee making sure the game was played fairly.
Exactly. And what they found is that even with this judge in place, there was quite a bit of variability in how the different LLMs performed. Some were better at crafting persuasive misinformation, while others were more skilled at debunking it effectively.
So even in the world of AI, there are variations in skill and strategy.
Indeed. And that's something to keep in mind as we continue to develop and deploy LLMs in various aspects of our lives. It's a reminder that these models are not monolithic. They have their own strengths and weaknesses just like us.
Speaking of strengths and weaknesses, I want to circle back to the limitations of this study. It's fascinating to see how these ideas play out in a simulated environment. But how does this research connect to the real world?
That's a great question, and it's one the researchers acknowledge head on. They're very clear that this simulation, while insightful, is still a simplified version of reality.
So what are some of the real-world factors that the simulation doesn't capture, things that make opinion dynamics even more complex?
Oh, there are so many. For one thing, real people are driven by emotions in a way that's very hard to simulate. Fear, anger, hope. These feelings can play a huge role in how we process information and form opinions.
And let's not forget about social pressure. The need to fit in with our friends, family, or online communities can influence what we believe and what we're willing to share, even if deep down we have doubts.
Absolutely. And then there are personal experiences, those unique life events that shape our worldview and make each of us see the world a little differently. All of these factors and many more contribute to the incredible complexity of human opinion dynamics.
It's almost like each individual is a unique ecosystem of beliefs, constantly evolving and interacting with the world around them.
That's a great way to put it. And this simulation, while it doesn't capture all of that nuance, still gives us a valuable framework for understanding some of the core dynamics at play.
It's like it helps us see the forest even if we can't examine every single tree. So knowing what we know now, what can we do with this information? How can we use this research to navigate the real world of misinformation?
Well, for starters, it highlights the importance of being aware of our own biases, recognizing that we all have a tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs is the first step in becoming more critical thinkers.
And it underscores the need to be proactive in seeking out diverse perspectives. Don't just stay in your comfortable echo chamber. Challenge yourself to engage with different viewpoints, even if they make you a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. And remember, the research suggests that building resilience to misinformation is key. It's not just about debunking false claims after they've spread. It's about equipping people with the tools to think critically and evaluate information for themselves.
So instead of just being green nodes swayed by whatever information comes our way, we can strive to be like those blue agents, armed with the knowledge and skills to discern truth from falsehood.
Precisely, and that's something we can all work on individually and collectively. Educators can incorporate media literacy into their curricula. Parents can have open conversations with their kids about online safety, and each of us can make a conscious effort to be more discerning consumers of information.
It's empowering to realize that we're not just passive recipients of information. We have the power to choose what we believe, to question what we see and hear, and to help others do the same.
And that's what makes this research so valuable. It's not just about understanding a problem. It's about giving us tools to find solutions. It's about fostering a more informed, more resilient, and ultimately more truth-seeking society.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into this thought-provoking paper. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final question to ponder. If you were designing a real-world system to combat misinformation, what would it look like? What strategies would you prioritize?
That's a great question to reflect on. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. This is a complex issue that requires ongoing research collaboration and a willingness to adapt and learn.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep striving to be an informed and engaged citizen of this ever-evolving information landscape. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of knowledge and ideas.